Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're listening to this. This is the Last Best Hope for Conversation, a JKL Media podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jesse Jackson. Joining me this week is Lou,
Hello, everyone.
Karen,
Hello.
and this is a kind of strange one or a one-off one. There is a lot going on, most of it good in our personal lives. So we will be taking a break from doing before we start season 5 of Babylon 5. We had planned to talk about the debut episode of season 5 today. And then when we all got on the computer and started talking, we realized there's a few things going on. So we're going to hold off probably end of August, September sometime and pick up. We do have a few other things planned so that we'll have some episodes over the next 3 or 4 weeks. But we just wanted to tell everyone what's going on. But since the gang's all here anyway, we thought we'd just kind of talk about the first 4 seasons of Babylon 5. And I'm going to start out with, and by the way, if you think we are normally unorganized, this is your because we decided this 5 minutes ago we were going to do this.
We are going to
And
be
you're doing a hell of a job, Jesse.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
We're going to be all over the place.
Yeah. So, Lou, when we started this journey, this is actually you got the band back together. So why don't you refresh or share? I don't know if we've ever talked about this on the podcast about what was the impetus to you coming back to Karen and I and saying, hey, let's watch this Babylon 5 show.
Sure. Well, it all started when we started doing a podcast for Farscape, which was I think everybody has a bucket list of shows that they've wanted to watch that, but for one reason or another, that sort of either got out of their grasp and they never got back to it. And for me, Farscape was one of those shows, so that was great, and that turned out to be a very pleasant surprise. Because I was one of those people that saw the Muppets and thought this looks kind of silly, but once you got into the show, it turned out to be quite a profoundly emotional show, and I ended up really loving it. And we just did that, and you and me, Jesse, were on the Game of Thrones, and I was on that for a while until I felt it was taking a turn to a direction I didn't like. I think you stuck it out, and I think you're even doing the House of Dragon, correct?
I am, and a funny story. See, guys, we're already off the rails. This past week, Wendy, who is normally the host, the bus driver of our House of Dragon discussion, had a conflict. And so she said, hey, Jesse, can you host? So it was Shannon, Christine, and I doing House of Dragon. And Christine's like, why are you nervous? You do 1,000 podcasts a week.
Right.
I go, yeah, but I mean, I feel like I'm stepping into Wendy. So it was, that was a kind of weird hosting because, normally, I'm just a guest and
Right.
just someone
Yep.
named. So,
Yep.
what's nice about us three is we take turns hosting on ours.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but
except
yes,
on this one.
yeah,
Yeah,
But
this
yeah,
one's
so
all Jesse.
yeah, so we had done that, and then time passed, and we had such a blast doing
Dude,
Farscape.
you never
And
mentioned how we did a thing on
yeah,
Chuck.
well, we and then Karen and I had done, I think it was Chuck,
Yeah, it
right?
was Chuck.
Yeah, so we started off with Chuck, and then we moved over to um Farscape, and I also did a Fringe podcast. I don't You
I
were on there a
guessed it
couple of
on that a
times.
few times. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So so we really got along well, the three of us, and I just you know got the bug, the podcast again, and I was really missing talking to you two. And I realized that I had another show in my bucket list of science fiction shows that I wanted to do, and that just happened to be Babylon 5. Another one of those shows that just got out of my grasp and I never got back to. So we decided to get back together and do it. And it's hard to believe that we're 4 seasons into it already, and here we are. So that's kind of the background of everything from my perspective. I don't know if you want to add anything, Karen.
Yeah, when we started talking about doing this quite a bit before we actually started, emails back and forth and stuff like that. And for some reason, it just never came together until this last time that we talked about it a couple years ago. And it was like, yep, I can do it now, and Jesse can do it now, and Lou can do it now. So let's do it now. And I have to say that it was such a great thing that we decided to do because you guys are like my best friends now. And before I felt like that too, but this is like it's a really bonding experience to have done one podcast one way, where Lou and I were the veterans and Jesse was and then to do another from a different perspective. And I feel like we kind of understand where you were coming from in the Farscape podcast. And it's like we all understand each other's experiences. I don't know if that's true for everyone, but that's kind of how I feel about it. And
Hmm.
and I feel like this is something we're gonna do for a long time. Even after we finish with Babylon 5, we're gonna find something else to talk about because this would be very difficult for me to go without doing this every Sunday. So
Yeah.
again, that's just my opinion, but I don't know how you guys feel about it. But yeah,
Hmm.
that's how.
No, I feel exactly the same way. I mean, this is, in fact, I was talking about that I'm going to try to go, I was talking to you guys. My mom is not doing well. And so I need to go visit her, right? And I was talking about it that I don't want necessarily to miss our Sunday recording. And often I do that when I go see my mom. I leave on Friday and I come back Saturday because I don't want to miss. Because this has just been a joy. Um, I just checked, according to iTunes, we started this our B5 podcast in January 2022. So
Wow.
we've been
So
two and a
2
half
years.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And before that, I mean, we can go back to we did a few things back in 2014. We talked about Ocean at the End of the Lane.
Yep.
We talked about when Leonard Nimoy passed. So we've kind of been on and off doing this, and yeah, I just can't see. Um, this is a perfect example of when I people ask me, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing a podcast." I go, "Okay, do you have a topic that you will do even if no one listens?"
Mm-hmm.
And we are very blessed to have a lot of wonderful listeners and people that give us feedback on our Babylon 5 discussion. But this truly is just how I want to spend my Sunday mornings. This is my version of a spiritual church, is
Yeah.
Hmm.
spending time with the three of you
Yeah.
or two of you, the three of us.
And
Um,
of course, Jesse and I
yeah,
did the Castle podcast
we did. Yeah,
back a while ago, which was kind of a hate watch at the end, but I
yeah,
really
it was.
loved
I knew
I
that was going
really
to
loved
happen,
doing
but
it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
it was a great show until then, until
yeah,
like the last 2 seasons. And then it was
yeah,
like, all right, I guess we have to talk about it
yeah.
again. But
And I think that's one of the interesting things. I wonder if Nathan and the creative people behind The Rookie kind of saw that instead of having this all rest on his shoulders as the head of the call sheet, um, they've expanded. And you wonder if you went back and redid Castle, where because we often talked about the other people in the station, if they
mhm.
had more of a storyline, would it have been how interesting it would be. And the rookie has done that. I
Right.
mean, he often is only in a third of the scenes, and the other people have their own storylines and their own lives, and a it makes for more of an ensemble procedural and TV show. I mean, it's certainly not, deep drama, but it's fun. And and it seems to be doing very well for ABC, and I have a lot of fun every week watching them and watching the cast to kind of do some stuff.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I
that
think
was
the
a
big thing with that is um, Nathan was pretty adamant that he was burnt out. Castle burnt him out
mhm.
because he had to carry so much of the load. So I'm
That's what
sure
I was
when he
gonna
went into this
say.
show, he really wanted to spread the workload with his castmates, and
Yeah, I
plus,
think it
plus he's
was,
getting older too, right? So,
Yeah.
yep, it
and
was
but
castle fatigue.
I'm gonna say it, and I know Jesse, you like watching the show and that, but for me, him being on that show like that is to me is a waste of his talent. But that's just my
Oh,
he should be doing so much more. And I just wish he was more. Uh, and now he's getting too old, unfortunately. But like I still think even like when they did that, God, the Uncharted movie with
Yeah, he should have been
it
Nathan.
should have been him. It's because
Yep.
that
yeah,
character, if you play the video games, it looks exactly like him when he was younger.
Yeah. It was
yeah,
Uh,
modeled on him.
and no,
yeah,
nothing against Tom Holland, but
yeah,
that character, and
He's not
he
Nathan
doesn't
though.
have that personality, the quippiness that Nathan Fillion has,
yeah.
and I just thought that was a waste. But Nathan's got a steady gig again, so I'm sure he's happy, and he gets to do these side project things, which I enjoy much more than something like what his
Yeah.
main job is right now.
Yeah,
And that was the same with Castle too.
he's technically part of the Marvel verse and the
Yeah.
DC verse.
Yeah,
And
there's this week as we recorded this, there scenes of him as Guy Gardner have
yep,
broken out, and that's a wonderful, crazy
it is.
character in the DC
Yeah.
universe as a Green Lantern. So hopefully, yeah, and I do think that um, he there is an alternate timeline where either Serenity had been more successful,
Hmm.
or if there are other things that he would have been a leading man
Yeah.
in film work.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
He could
because
have
I mean,
parlayed Firefly into a leading man role
yeah,
if Fox hadn't done them dirty, I think.
right, because I mean, he's charming and he's good in The Rookie, but it is just popcorn TV.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I really like they've, oh, I can't think of the actress's name. I'll look it up in a minute, who currently plays his wife on The Rookie. She, was also Lana Lang
Oh
on
yeah, yeah.
Superman. She's a very likable actress, and and everyone's good on there. It is just really just it's Blue Bloods or something else. I mean, this is not trying to be NYPD Blue.
Hmm.
Right.
This is
Or The
just,
Wire.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, this is it is a CBS procedural that happens to be on ABC.
Right.
And um there's nothing wrong with comfort food, but you're
Hmm.
right. I think that this is it would have been interesting if he had wanted to, if he had had the opportunity to do a little bit more.
Yeah.
I agree. So
Yeah.
Karen, much as we love, we had all enjoyed each other. Um, can you remember why you just never watched Babylon 5? Just one of those things you missed?
Yeah. It was in a period where I was deep into like the Star Trek shows,
Yeah,
and Voyager and DS9 and all of that were around the same time.
yeah,
Voyager was my big thing, which some people will hate me for, but I mean, after the Next Generation, I really wanted something
Hmm.
yeah,
in space.
yeah,
And DS9 didn't really do that for me, although I watched it. Everything was like a bottle episode.
Yeah.
every single episode. And so I really wanted a space thing. I love the whole concept of them being thrown far from Earth and trying to make it home and all that. It kind of gave me a Quantum Leap vibe. Um, and I felt like that was kind of my thing. And I also had been promoted to have this really high pressure job in Austin. And so there was a lot of stuff going on. And I started watching Babylon 5.
Hmm.
And it's just like a memory where I couldn't really remember it. And I
Yeah.
thought, well, if I can't remember it, I gotta focus on other stuff.
Yeah.
So that I was much younger. My life was fuller
Yeah.
back then. I had just gotten married, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it was just something that it was a timing issue for me.
Sure.
And I kind of regret I didn't watch it now after seeing so much of it, but it just the confluence of things didn't come together right for that time period.
Sure. And oh, by the way, just to put a button on it, it is Jenna
Dewan.
Dewan.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Um,
remembered as soon as you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I watched episode 5, or the first episode of season 5, and I won't get too much into it, but I go, boy, it in a lot of ways it feels like a new show.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And it's almost, and I realize there's other reasons why this happens behind the scenes, right? But it's almost like, you know, if you've ever had a car that stalled, and I don't know if anyone else remembers this, but um if you have a standard, you can push a car, and it will
Jump
you
start.
can jumpstart it without doing cut cables. You can just have it running, and then you've got it in a gear, and then
Hmm.
as it's moving, you can open it and it will start. But to get that car started from that dead stop, you have to put a lot of effort. And it feels like, for some reason, to me, episode 5, we were going from a dead start. So that's kind of a tease of what in a month of in a few weeks we'll talk about.
And a
But
caveat
yeah,
for the listeners, that was what we were planning on talking about today,
yeah,
and we decided to wait to start season 5 till
With
after
that.
the. So
Yeah.
we've all seen the
yes,
first episode, so I just want to let them know he's not spoiling anything for us.
No.
yeah,
Yeah.
We've all
yeah,
seen
It
it,
just didn't make
so
sense to wait 2 months to start this, do
yeah,
the second
right,
exactly. Go
episode.
back.
So,
Yeah,
right.
because we would go, okay, let's go back.
But I
yeah.
just I wanted to cut any
Yeah.
No,
of those
yeah,
comments in the bud. We've all seen that episode.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit, Karen, so I'll let you go back to you. So 4 episodes in, and in a lot of ways, we could have,
4 seasons.
yeah, 4 seasons. We could have gone and watched Sleeping in Light, which is the final episode, and you would have had kind of a full story. So considering you haven't seen the final episode, but thinking 4 seasons in, what are your thoughts? I mean, one, you said you're really glad you've watched it, I think partly because you get to hang out with the three of
Well,
us. But
yeah,
as a
that's
story, what do
definitely
you
part
think?
of it. But I do think there's a lot of value to seeing the show if you're into genre television. It did a lot of things that are different from other shows. Their budget for, I know it wasn't a huge budget, but I feel like they did everything they could with the budget they had, and they were exemplary in their special effects. And that's something to be lauded. Some of it actually holds up. I would say great much of it holds up even now that we don't see any wires or there's a lot of like the Expendables 4 just came out, and the special effects on that movie are worse than Babylon 5. So, I mean,
Okay.
if you see anything like Corridor Crew did a little video on it, and there's obvious blue screen, like obvious blue screen behind
Mm.
them half the time. So I I feel like this has really done more than a lot of movies, a lot of other TV shows, and the story is also very well written. With a few duds, but it's the same with every other science fiction show. Shades of Grey. If you watch TNG, that's the worst episode ever. But and gosh, we're all over the place with this. But I do feel like this it did a lot for the genre, and I feel like it's still conveying a good message. And we've seen that, it was very prescient when it came to events that are happening even now. And I feel like that is amazing to me that I can see things that happened in the 90s on this show that are still very relevant today. And that's amazing to me. And it's always a sign of a good show when you're surprised in a great way about the things that happen on it.
Yeah, one of the things that, and I want to get your thought in a minute, Lou, but I am surprised, as someone who's seen the show multiple times, um, how much President Clark and the current extreme side of political parties are in sync.
Mm.
I'll be very careful, even though, we all know who I'm talking about. Um, the idea that I was really surprised about that, and in a
Mhm.
very pleasant way of like, wow, this is it. I know one of the things that Stravinsky has said is that he thinks a lot of money spent on TV is due to waste.
Mm.
And he did not specifically say this, but I know I always think about this when I'm reading about West Wing, which is one of my favorite series. But Aaron Sorkin would be still writing the script like a day or two before they had to start building sets. And sometimes the day that they had to start building sets, which therefore meant you had to rush, you had to do overtime. And JMS said, if I can give the crew the script 2 or 3 weeks in advance or a month in advance, that way you have time to prepare and therefore you can spend the money wisely. And I do think that shows. Um, and I think it's easy to you can certainly nitpick that there are times when the story doesn't quite work. But I think overall it pretty much hangs together. Lou, how about you? Thoughts?
Yeah, this could be a big topic. This could get a show on its own. Uh, Babylon 5 is an interesting beast to me because I know the production behind the scenes issues that forced them to fast track the story to get it into season 4. I think the show in general, uh, as Karen mentioned and as you've mentioned, is very relevant within individual beats. The they also there's that saying where if there's a chemistry or synergy, the sum of the sum of the individual parts is greater than the the whole. I think Babylon 5 kind of works in the reverse. I think the individual beats are greater than the overall whole. Like you can pick specific episodes, and the relevance of what's going on today is very, eerie, amazing. However, the story as a whole doesn't hang together quite as neatly as I think it should. I'm think part of this, I can only judge on the final product because one of the things fandom likes to do with shows or movies or whatever is say, oh yeah, but if you read the book or if you know this, then that all makes sense. But that's not what they put on the screen. You can only judge what they put on the screen. And for me, I'm glad that I'm finally watching this series. However, I can easily say, no matter what if season five, I don't think is going to change my mind. This is the lesser of the shows that I've watched in genre television. Or I'm not saying that it's a bad show, but I would put it near the bottom of the list of shows that I like. Like we've watched Fringe, Farscape. I think 12 Monkeys, which we did on our JKL Media podcast, are all better shows than this one. I appreciate some of the individual moments, but as a whole, the series didn't hang together quite as well for me. I think part of that is the production issues. I think I would love to talk to JMS, and maybe he would totally disagree with me, but I think his desire to be the sole writer of every episode is a mistake because I just don't see how anybody can sustain that level of quality over a 4 or 5. For him, it was probably more like 7 or 8 years because there's always, like ramping up to get to the production phase and that. I just think that's too great of a burden. I remember Mike Flanagan saying after he did The Haunting of Hill House for Netflix that he directed all 8 episodes. He said he would never do that again, and he didn't. I just, it's such a collaborative effort for somebody to take on that amount of work single-handedly is an enormous task. So I I have mixed feelings about the series, and this is what I've just said is probably going to anger a lot of fans of the series because I know a lot of people this is their favorite show, and that's cool. And I'm glad that those people are out there that like the show that much. But I can't judge it better than other shows that I've watched. That's just the way I'm feeling about it. I just think that it just doesn't hang together quite as well. Like the overall story that they were telling had so much more opportunities that could have been used, but because of the compressed schedule that they had to work on to get it out in 4 seasons instead of 5, a lot of those moments were lost. And I've mentioned this in previous episodes. What really knocks it down for me is it doesn't show those character moments that I'm wanting. Like that doesn't give me closure on a lot of arcs. And I think that's the thing that really stands out for me the most. The Garibaldi not reconciling scenes with Sheridan, Garibaldi not getting his final bits with Sinclair. Those are all things that I was really really looking forward to, but never got. So, yeah, I'm definitely glad that I watched the show. It was a missed part of my fandom, but I know that this will not rank as high as other shows that I've watched. So I've probably said quite a bit there. I don't know where you guys are sitting with it.
No.
I'm gonna equate that to, like, I just admitted that Voyager was my jam back then,
Yeah.
and that is not a popular opinion in the
Right.
Star Trek fandom. So, we all have our different things that we like and what we don't like, and this is definitely something I like. And like Lou, there are other shows that rank higher to me.
Yeah.
I mean, Farscape for one, which is, I think, probably my favorite show as far as science fiction goes. But, Voyager, The Next Generation, those are all way up there. And I think it's a great thing that we watched this together because it's worth it. But, like Lou says, it's there are things about it that are flawed. I'll say that for sure.
It's like it's like an record album. There's like 1 or 2 tracks that you love, but the rest of the album is kind of like, yeah, it's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
And one of the things you remind me of is we had some friends of ours that loved Bridges of Madison County. And when Lynn and I watched the movie, we're like, I don't like these characters at all. And their answer was, well, you just needed to read the book.
Yeah, yeah, see what I mean?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I guess. And
But I didn't, and that's why I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I know they just re-put out a updated version of the book Jaws with a new introduction.
Yep.
And I remember seeing the film first.
Mm.
And then when I went back and read the book, there's a lot of subplots that I don't care about.
Yeah, same
Right.
here.
And
I
I
had the
was,
same
and
experience. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, oh, well, I don't need to know that
The sheriff's wife is
Brody's
having an
in an
affair.
affair and all
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
and I just think, the whole, and obviously Steven Spielberg is brilliant, and and Jaws started the summer blockbuster in a lot of ways. But yeah, I do think that, and I think I've been very open about when I first saw Babylon 5. There was a lot of craziness going on in my life. We were implementing a new software at my company. It was not going well. Just there was a lot of backfighting and just, our talk time went from 6 minutes to 25 minutes in a call center. And you can imagine, I mean, that's
Mostly
just
bitching.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just,
Yeah.
and so that hour every day of watching it on VHS from TNT was just my little hour of
Refuge. Yeah.
refugees. So,
Yeah.
and I do think you guys both said it really well. There are moments on this series so far in the first four seasons that are as good as anything in the genre or drama world.
Hmm.
I think there are, in my opinion, just that this is
Mhm.
this individually, and I'm going to use, I like Lou's idea. This individual track, this single stands up against anything you want to see.
Yep.
But there's others where you go, eh. And I also think, I thought your point, Lou, about a lot of this is guest casting.
Yes.
Mhm.
Casting.
Yeah. I was just going to mention that again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they knock it out of the park
Yeah.
and you go, wow, that was a person. They got to show, they picked this person. They were able to just go. Then other times, wow, they weren't able to
Yeah. I
carry
I wonder
the
if it was
load.
a production limitation because I'm guessing that they spent a lot of money in the first seasons on sets, and so they didn't have much money left over for guests. Because
Mm.
to me, the guest casting improved dramatically as the show went along, but those first couple of seasons were very hit and miss.
And there's still some hit and miss, even in like
Yeah,
seasons two, three, and
yeah,
four, but it's much less
yeah.
miss and
Yeah,
much more hit.
I think another interesting contrast to this show would, if you take Lost, for example, was a show that started out really strong, had a great, hook concept, but they didn't know how many seasons the show was going to go. So then it started to have to wade, stand
Yeah.
in spot, started to wade water. Then once they got a commitment from ABC to say, okay, you got this many more seasons to get the story done, then the show, like you said, it jump started again, and to me, it became really good again. But those middle seasons, there's just a lot of sort of like standing around waiting for the other shoe to drop, and um,
Black Fog.
yeah, and I think uh, Babylon 5 had the opposite problem. That is that they weren't sure if they were going to get enough seasons to tell their story, and so they had to rush it. So it's two different. It's a gift for a show to know that you're going to get this much time to tell your story, which is one of the reasons why I think limited series work better uh, because there's not as much, fat, and plus they know when their end date is, and they have to tell their story over 8 episodes or something like that. Um,
I would use
so
Mike Flanagan as a great example of that. He
yeah,
knows he's going to get 8 episodes and he writes for 8 episodes.
yeah,
I mean, it's such a blessing to have that knowledge.
yeah.
And
And
yeah,
I understand the business side of it. It's hard for a
sure.
network to commit to 5 seasons because what if the show's a bomb out of the gate? You're not gonna or if it falters. And like look at Fringe, probably a better example because that show they really tried to push it and make it popular. But then and it was working in a standalone mode. But then when they finally decided to serialize the show, basically at the end of the first season and then the subsequent seasons, the audience dwindled, but the series got, in my opinion, got dramatically better. because they were, we're exploring the characters more. So yeah, it's it's television is a tough business, and the viewing model is constantly changing. So I'm curious though for you, Jesse, because you've had the opportunity to watch the animated movie, which me and Karen can't watch until we finish the series. Based on my earlier point about JMS having so much of a hand in the entire arc of the series and the missed opportunities with character beats, um, and just the fact that writing for television is different today than it is when the show aired. Uh, were the changes or the tone of the animated movie different from the series? Did you feel that JMS had matured or as a writer, and did he? Because I kind of get the vibe that this movie is, a love letter to the show, and he's closing off all those emotional character arcs that he never got to do with the live show. But that's the vibe I'm getting. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I need to rewatch it with that thought. It is, the premise of it is John is going through different points in time and different dimensions. So
Right.
there's other things. So it is kind of an exploration.
Hmm.
What I am really interested in is, and he says it's not dead. The Babylon 5 reboot is still not dead. He says I'm not being overly optimistic. I'm just flat saying the truth. I'm not saying we're going to get it. I'm not saying we're not. And I wonder though, if he did get the okay, would he go back to more of a open, you know, a writer's room?
Oh,
Like
I think he would
since
have to because he's
yeah,
too
like,
old.
yeah, like since 8 he was involved in, and I think other people wrote episodes, and there is, I don't, they haven't announced anything, but if this animated movie had done well enough,
Hmm.
there was a premise that they would do a whole series of animated movies set in a alternate universe.
Mm.
And that's all I'll say, right?
Yeah.
Where instead of going right, you went left.
Okay.
And it would have
What
been,
if?
yeah, what if? Yeah, but a whole storyline
Hmm.
of going that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it, I don't know. I think he has said multiple times, and he has defended himself that it was so much in his mind that he couldn't, there were so many different jigsaw pieces that he just didn't know how they could do this. And this was also, I wonder though, if you had had a writer's room where you had had many people and then him trying to explain what was going on and then had people. But Aaron Sorkin basically did the same thing with West Wing.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, he had a writer's room, but basically they were there for research, and he ended up
But
doing most of the rewriting.
yeah, but I bet you he used that writer's room to bounce ideas off of,
Yeah,
even though they were just there for research. And I don't know
yeah.
the behind the scenes with JMS. Was he writing in his office all by himself, or did he have a partner? Like, was he
No,
bouncing
from what I
stuff?
can from what I can gather, he was in his office writing,
Yeah.
and like always, I mean, he was show running, doing everything involved with picking up the costumes, picking up the looks, doing the
That's,
sets,
you
and
know,
writing.
yeah,
Yeah,
you'd have
that's
to have like
crazy.
godlike vision and
Yeah,
endurance, and that's tough to do, man.
and that's why they call him the Great Maker, right? That
Yeah.
was the joke they made about him,
Yeah.
because it did. And there's jokes about, and actually it's very little joking. You see a person when they started the presidency and when they leave, the
Hmm.
amount of aging they have.
Yeah.
He had that during that time. I mean,
Yeah.
he had to go through so much.
Yeah.
A great
Because
example of that would be John Oliver. And I think part of his is that he takes the lead on his show as well.
mm,
Yeah.
Last week tonight, and he has aged significantly. since that show has started. And I think it's because
Yeah.
he takes a lot of the burden on himself. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a totally different
Yeah.
genre
Yeah.
of show, but it's the same kind of
Yeah.
example.
I'm just really curious, and I tip my hat off to GMS for being able to pull this series off on his
Yeah.
own. But in general, anytime you look at a person like a famous person and you say, "Wow, they did this all on their own." When you start listening to them talk about the process, usually they've got somebody a partner that they're bouncing stuff off of. Like I know Mike Flanagan has a writing buddy, a producing buddy that he works with behind the scenes, and that guy is a much more low profile. But he definitely says that guy is integral to his process, and they work as a team to do that. And in our upcoming next JKL Media podcast, we're going to be doing the Stevie Van Zandt movie,
Yeah.
and I was totally blown away by how much Bruce Springsteen depended upon him in the especially in the early part of his career. So for JMS to do this on his own,
Yeah.
uh, you know, th- uh, that is mind-blowing to me. I don't know how the guy's still alive, to be
Yeah.
honest,
Right?
and that he wants to do it again is crazy.
Yeah. And, part of me, it's going to be interesting because I remember, spoilers, being a little disappointed in the fifth season, right? And I think in a lot of ways, there are individual episodes that will be hit singles,
Hmm.
but overall you'll go, this is a mediocre album.
Hmm.
Now, maybe you guys will be surprised. Maybe you'll come back and go, no, no, Jesse, I really like this. Because we have had that where, I've liked an episode more than you guys, but there have been other episodes where you guys come back and go, no, I like this a lot more
Hmm.
than we thought. So it will be an interesting discussion.
Hmm.
Um, and I do think there are, I wonder you, if he had a chance, would he, because I do agree having Garibaldi um, get to interact with Sinclair, right?
Hmm.
Somehow.
Yeah.
And I understand why,
Yeah.
the actor had to go, but figuring out I've got a way to do this, right?
Yeah.
It's like they could not get away for June Lockhart and Bill Mummy to have a scene together, even
Yeah.
though they were trying so hard, they just
Hmm.
couldn't make it work.
Yeah.
Um, and I do think that it has cheated us as an audience that when, you know, when he sees Michael being, he's drugged up and he goes, I wanted to be, and there, I wanted to see that payoff of them fighting and, and
Hmm.
then forgiving him or doing something about that.
Yeah.
The same way we got to see Bester and Garibaldi. Even though Garibaldi was frozen, we
Hmm.
did get that wonderful scene together.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and I
Go
would
ahead.
just, I mean, it's still kind of the same topic, but one of the things that I go back and forth on is Jakar and Londo, and I will always love a scene where they are together.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I feel like they kind of, and I'm going to use this term again, kind of did them dirty in a way. I mean, their relationship was so interesting to me until Londo became this just a horrible person and horrible, sorry, Centauri, not not
Yeah.
person, but
Still a person.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a huge loss to the show that could have been something that I guess made it more interesting. I'm struggling to find a word to describe it, but I feel like that's a huge lost opportunity that putting them together always I'm always riveted by it. And those two actors I think did the most with what they had. And I mean, Jakar, I've always loved Jakar, and I feel like he's still going on his journey, and he's still the same person that he's always been. And Londo has changed over the course of the show. And, I still like his character, but I feel like he's really lost a lot of his luster for me. But seeing them together is always good, and I feel like that's something that should have been exploited more.
Mhm.
Um, so,
I
I mean, I would use that as an example.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. My biggest issue with where those two characters are now is how buddy they are after what they've gone through. I just don't buy it. To me, that just does not feel realistic. Like that's like trying to say you're taking like the commandant of a concentration camp and one of the survivors of the camp, and they're going to be like buddies after that experience. Like I just don't buy it. And I understand from a television storytelling perspective that you have to keep these characters together, but I just don't like their relationship the way it is now. I just don't, to me, it just feels false, totally
Yeah.
false.
It would almost be like that person in the concentration camp being buddy with Hitler.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, he was the architect of Londo, was the architect of this whole
Yeah.
thing. And it is unrealistic. It's not to say I don't like it, because I always like when they're together, but there's
Hmm.
a part of me that has to do a massive hand wave in
Yeah.
order to get that
Yeah.
enjoyment out of it.
And Jesse, I don't think you have quite the same problem with them.
No, I don't. And I think because I know we still have story left to tell with them
Okay.
two
All right.
is part of the reason why. And I
Yeah, you have a different perspective on
yeah,
it
and
than
I
me.
also think, right, that it it works or don't, right? It
Hmm.
is this um
There's no right or wrong. It's just
yeah,
that's our,
I
our
don't
subjective reaction
yeah,
to it. Yeah.
I don't know if they've earned, like I think they have earned enough, but I absolutely understand if someone says no, it hasn't earned it, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I
In
get
my
that.
Yeah.
in my perfect world, it would
Yeah.
have been fantastic to get an episode with just those two
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
And maybe
seeing,
we will. And maybe that's why Jesse is happy. But we'll
yeah.
see.
Well, and
Well, I
and
would have wanted to see it before now, before
Yeah,
the
I
yeah,
buddy
get yeah, I
buddy.
guess
and
you.
what would be really interesting, right, is there was the scene where they were trapped in the elevator
Yep.
and Jakar was like, "Yep, I'm happy, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
Hey, you get to die. I didn't do anything. I am happy,
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah, having a
yeah,
whole episode like that would have been,
yeah,
it would have
yeah,
been
Yeah.
great.
The
yeah,
only the only other point I would make about the show is I'm really wondering I can't help but wonder what my reaction to the show would have been if I had watched it real time when it first aired.
Mm, yeah.
yeah,
Because I was in a, we're all in a different place in our life.
yeah,
And I kind of think my reaction to would be more favorable if I had watched it back then as opposed to now.
yeah,
But, TV has really, like, we're in a golden age of TV right now. Like, there's just so much good television out there, and the good stuff is at such a high level. And in most cases, for me, a good TV show often eclipses what you see in the theater because theaters now have become so geared towards blockbusters, which
yeah.
are basically, just action sequences strung together with very little character development. So,
Churned out. I would say churned out
yeah.
shows
Yeah.
of
And
movies.
it's
Yeah.
interesting now to see how, uh, you know, maybe it's just post-COVID blahs, but theaters are really struggling
Mhm.
to, pull in audiences right now. And I don't know if people have just gotten out of the habit of going to the movies or they're just not in the mood for what's being offered. For better or worse, I think the Marvel Universe movies have burned out a lot of people on going to the movies because that's just one type of movie, and it's turned the movie business into a box office competition. Like,
Mhm.
if you don't get $1 billion box office, then the movie just doesn't generate any buzz, and people will just say, I'll just wait for it to come on streaming." So yeah, you know, it, when you watch something, it's very contextual. You have to, uh, it's like a time capsule in a way to um, think about how you're digesting something. And again, when we get into the Stevie Van Zandt thing, one of the things that blew me away was what a time capsule that movie was. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it just really, if you live through that period, I think something like that will really resonate for you. But if you're watching it removed, and you're, like the music business again, because I'm old.
Yeah.
Uh, I
Yeah.
think the music business sucks right now. I think music is terrible right now, but I think every
Yep.
generation thinks that about the current, like, because most people grow up with music and they stick that music that you listen to when you're a teenager is basically the music you're going to listen to for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Those darn
For the
kids and
majority
their
of it, right?
those
So
darn kids and their
yeah.
Taylor
So
Swift.
yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
Again, if I had seen Babylon 5 when it first aired, I'm pretty sure my opinion of it would be different. But it is what it is, and I can only react to it the way I am as a person now.
Yeah,
So
and I feel like, you mentioned the golden age of TV, and I agree with that 100%, especially genre TV.
yeah.
Yeah.
We get a lot more content, and the quality that we can watch it's almost too much
Hmm.
to
And
watch.
and
Yeah.
and it, and it's at a cinematic level too.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely. I mean, that's why we have big screen TVs in our house
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
so that we can expand everything and sit and watch it with popcorn and have a movie theater experience. And I can mention on two hands the stuff I'm watching, and then I'd need another two hands
Hmm.
because there's
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff that's good. I mean, Apple TV has really
Hmm.
pushed the envelope on science fiction and fantasy television. There's good things on Netflix, there's good things on Hulu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just amazing how much stuff there is out there and
And
how
it's so
good
hard
it
to
is.
watch it all.
Right,
Yeah. It
exactly.
is
We can't
impossible.
watch it
Like
all.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm like only maybe 2 to 3 episodes into the Bear. Well, the Bear we're going through quickly because it's on half hour. Well, I have to say the season's been kind of a disappointment for me. But
No.
I got the Three Body Problem, The
Yeah.
Boys.
Yeah.
What was the other series I was watching? Dark Matter. Like I'm only two to
Yep.
three episodes in all these shows, but it's just because there's so much on that it's hard to keep
And
track of it
something
all.
new. And like
Yeah,
something new comes out and you're like, oh, I gotta watch that right away. And then the other
Yeah.
stuff kind of falls by the wayside. And
yeah.
so there's just so many good things on now. Whereas back then it was
Hmm.
Star Trek and then a couple offshoot shows like
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you basically had like the three networks and
yep,
then
Yeah.
a few cable channels, right? And
right.
but now
CW, TNT, the
now
Paramount
it's
Network,
like you just reach out
Yeah.
into the
Exactly.
ether and you pull
everything.
something in. Yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
yeah.
I mean, I have on my phone under notes to watch.
Yep.
And I just when I see something, I add it. When I add it, I just watched last week, and I know we're getting off topic, and we'll get back in a minute, but I did not care. The Boys was going a little weird for me, and I haven't watched three
A
or
little weird.
four. Yeah, it's strange. But I watched Gen V for the first time
Mm,
and was like, wow, okay, yes, this is still gory, but I
hmm.
really liked the characters on this. I liked it a
I haven't
lot.
watched that at all.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really well
It's
done.
good.
Yeah,
It's
it's
good.
really well done. All right. And I do
Uh,
think
Talking
that,
about genre TV isn't
yeah,
too off topic. We can,
no.
Hmm.
So, and I do think that there are times when I have not heard this, but there, well, for example, right? Um, someone will watch John Ford's Stagecoach, which was the film that made John Wayne a star,
Hmm.
and they'll go, wow, this is just nothing but a whole show of cliches.
yep. But it
Because
wasn't then.
exactly, there's the
Right.
gambler, there's the drunk doctor, there's the uptight lady, there's the, lady of the night.
Hmm.
That
And
movie is why they're cliches.
yes, and by the way, one of my favorite films. I
It's a
watch that
great
every few
movie.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you never seen it, Lou?
Don't not in its entirety. No, I don't think so.
Okay,
Good.
we may have to break off and watch that because that's
We've
Yeah.
talked about Westerns before. I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
Another
sure.
good one might be 12 Angry Men. I've never
Yeah.
Oh,
seen
that's
that.
so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
make
I
um
vote for that.
yeah,
Okay.
I
okay,
put my
that's
hand
good.
up. I vote for that.
Yeah, that
Maybe
might be
that's we do for
fun.
next week. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that we'll do some classic films that we'll do discussing. So,
Yeah.
all right. All right. And we're gonna wrap this up.
I
Um,
think we did amazing. Just winging
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
so
so
too.
too.
Yeah.
That's what
Not knowing
all
we
Um,
these
were going to
years of
talk about it.
yeah, that's all
yeah,
these years of hanging out together. We can just do
exactly.
this
Yeah.
incidental talk quite
And
So,
I
nicely.
mean, I
yeah,
hope the listeners like it. I feel like it gives them an insight into us and our thought processes and why we like the things we do. And I hope that that's valuable to
yeah,
them. Maybe it'll
Or at the
inform them
least
on
entertaining.
yeah,
right.
exactly. Yeah.
There's that too.
All
Yeah.
right. So here's what we've got planned. Um, we are Lou is taking some time off. I'm taking some time off. Karen's got some things going on. She's taking some time off. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to record some one-offs, and we will release them once a week. And then when we know when we're going to start recording again, we'll put something out, probably on the YouTube channel and on the podcast feed that we're returning. We're going to pick back up doing season 5,
Yeah. Probably
and
after Labor
then
Day weekend.
yeah, probably
Yeah.
after Labor Day weekend. I think
Going
that would
back to
be fair.
school.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
our summer vacation.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe our next big JKL Media, speaking of Mike Flanagan, we're going to pick up one of his series, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bly Manor.
Blind Matter, yes, which because Lou has been telling me I need to watch that and I have too much other stuff, but if he makes it where it's for the podcast, then we kill two birds with one stone.
That
I
was my
get the
thought
great,
process.
yeah, it's like,
As
oh,
And you
as
have to get your
usual.
wife to watch it with you.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm going. She actually has said that she wanted us to watch. I had never watched House of Cards.
Hmm.
And so that's what we've been watching together.
Hmm.
And she said, okay, you get to pick the next one. So I'm going to save that and we're going to watch that together.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's very
I
good.
think as usual, and I'll say this, we're coming from 3 different perspectives on almost everything. I'm kind of the middle person. Lou has seen it. I've seen a couple episodes of Bly Manor. I haven't seen the whole thing. And yeah, I'm sorry, it's one of those things where something
Oh,
took
okay.
my attention away.
Uh,
But yeah, I've seen all this other stuff, so
Mhm.
I don't have any problem. I mean, I love Mike Flanagan stuff. I've seen all of the House of Usher, if
Good.
that helps. But
Yep.
yeah, Bly Manor is the one that other things took my attention away.
Oh,
But
boy, then you're in for a treat because the
yeah,
last that show gets stronger as it goes along.
yeah, I'm sure it does. I liked what I saw.
Hmm.
And it has a lot of people in it that we like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
I feel like that our podcast goes better when we have 3 different perspectives on things. And I think that
Yeah.
would be a great exercise in that.
Super. All right. Karen, if someone wants to reach you, how can they?
That's it. Done.
Yeah. Wrap it up.
Okay. I'm at Eliveria on social media, and my blog is alliestuff.com, where my landing page has a lot of links and stuff. And I've seen quite a bit of traffic there. So thank you guys for visiting and checking out that page at least, which I'm grateful for. And I'll update it while we have some time off with some newer stuff. So keep an eye out for that.
Good. Lou.
You can find me on Twitter at Lou W. Sitzma, SYTSMA, and of course on YouTube. You can find me at Lou's Reviews, where we do our Babylon 5 podcasts, as well as our JKL Media podcast. And we're up to 16 different things now. Next one's going to be Stevie Van Zandt, Disciple, but we've done stuff like the Peripheral, the Quester tapes, the English, Midnight Mass, Station 11, Bruce Springsteen's Western Stars, to Tragically Hip, and a bunch of other ones that you should definitely check out. As well as that, on my channel, you'll find my writer podcasts, interviews, and Stephen King podcast.
I feel like our Barbie episode was interesting too.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yes.
Maybe not in the same vein as everything else, but
Mhm.
I enjoyed that one.
I did too. All right. I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter, aka X. So as we're recording this, we're recording this on July 7th. On July 8th, for my Perfectly Good podcast, which is John Hyatt. No, yes, Perfectly Good podcast, John Hyatt, A to Z.
That's
I'm
right.
doing too many. Yes. I am releasing the discussion of Have a Little Faith in Me, which is John's iconic song. It's been used in dozens of films. If you heard it, you go, oh, yeah, I know that song. It is almost a 2-hour episode
Oh
where
my.
Sylvan, Jake Thistle, who is an up and coming musician in the New Jersey area, uh, Nick, I'm drawing a blank on Nick, is a journalist. He joined me, and Sylvan and we had people call in with their thoughts. It is, I think, a wonderful love letter to that song. And so I really recommend if you have not ever checked out Perfectly Good Podcast, at least try a little bit. It may take you, over a couple of days because it's so long, but I'm really proud of the discussion we had on this iconic song, and I'm hoping that a lot of people will check it out. All right. We will be back we'll be doing, as I said, some one-offs over the next couple of weeks. We'll be back after Labor Day to get back into the Babylon 5 universe. And who knows what we're going to do after that. We're discussion.
Yeah, I'm going to give this episode 10 out of 10 because I thought we were
Our
awesome.
episode, yeah, I agree.
I agree.
10 out of 10.
10 out of
And
10,
I
Three
give-
Musketeers.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
11 out of 10.
Okay,
Yes.
Spinal Tap.
Yep.
And yes, because it goes
Maybe
up
we
to
should
11.
watch Spinal Tap at some point.
Yeah, there we go.
Maybe.
All right. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, listeners. Come back next week for our discussion of Little Steven. His documentary. It's gonna be a fun one. For now, take care. Be safe. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Yay.
And scene.